the empty bushveld of Bophuthatswana, one of South Africa's 4 tribal homelands given a certain independence in the days of apartheid. And now, at the end of its yellow brick road, a sudden eruption of jungle baroque. Within the crater of an extinct volcano, Africa's most improbable building project since the pyramids, a sort of Disneyland South, though there's nothing Mickey Mouse about its budget. It took £150 million and counting to turn a fanciful folk memory into this reality, where the Flintstones and Indiana Jones meet Mozart and chandeliers. The brand new ancient palace was created in a couple of years within the casino resort of Sun City, a smiling, secure place in a tranquil time warp so apart from South African reality that it's hard to remember the violence of Soweto and the angry streets of Johannesburg are just beyond those mountains. In this oasis of crafty kitsch, black and white get along splendidly with never a cross word. It's the way Southern Africa could be. Though sadly, this is a never-never land. Its peace and prosperity a brigadoon that, if the men of violence have their way, could be submerged in terrible turbulence. This African fantasy, dreamed up in design offices in Dallas and Las Vegas, was conjured into life by a college boxing champion whose family came from the Ukraine. Sol Kirstner, the wizard of this land of Oz, has been called South Africa's most powerful man. As a youngster working in his father's Johannesburg cafe, he decided that entertaining the public was the fast way to pleasure and profit. And now the self-made mega-millionaire we're profiling today has 32 hotels and casinos in Africa and Mauritius, 3 casinos in France, and this phantasmagoria.
Blasted the canyons.
But they're not fiberglass.
No, these are not fiber.
The carefully arranged lost city is so far over the top, it defies cynicism.
And brought in by huge cranes.
Everything's unreal. Rocks found to be the wrong color have been replaced by boulders of painted cement that look more natural. Rivers thunder down into concrete canyons and are then pumped right back up the mountain.
Just feel the power. Adventure trails.
I take your point. This is Indiana Jones. Amid 5,000 well-designed acres, waves created in man-made lagoons crash onto artificial sand. Built-in earthquakes shake bridges, grass is painted green. It's almost a relief to find that, at the heart of it all, Sol's Casino does accept real money. Showing a lot of faith and hope, you built this resort. But it became willy-nilly a political issue.
It did. And the reason that it became a political issue is that it had become this successful. It was undoubtedly the best-known resort throughout Southern Africa. And therefore, people have wanted a nice, easy bandwagon. The minute they'd say, don't play Sun City.
So you were just a side issue, but you did suffer the hostility. What was your reaction to that sort of worldwide condemnation? You were carrying the cross of apartheid, weren't you?
It was difficult because, on the one hand, one understood that the system was rotten and had to change. One understood the reason that the world was putting pressure, that various groups were attacking South Africa.
Of course, in the days of apartheid, this was one of the few places in the whole of South Africa where blacks and whites could mingle.
Absolutely. It was one of the only places, one of the only resorts, and indeed the only major resort where people of all races could meet.
I mean, a guy could come up here with his black girlfriend, go to a topless show, and behave the way people often behave anywhere else in the world.
That's exactly it. And to me, that was exciting. It was for me, seeing that change was possible.
You see, you created a bolt hole, and the place instantly became known as Sin City. Now, was that a useful attraction?
No, not really.
Did it pull them in?
Not really. I think it was a place that pulled them in.
You see, the people who come here are buying a ticket into a fantasy world, albeit perhaps with an uncertain future. Somebody somewhere might strike a match, and South Africa would go over the abyss.
It might, but I doubt it. I believe the various leaders understand the importance of getting agreement together now. You know, you can't have the change that we've experienced over the last 2 years, a complete breakdown of a system that has been in place since 1948. You can't have huge changes we've had without a few hiccups. The important thing is the change is there. It's permanent. We're going to have a system that's going to be acceptable worldwide. We're not going to be a pariah state.
The myth Soul's created concerns an imaginary city in this crater destroyed by volcanic eruption.
And in this valley of the sun, they crafted citadels. Then they left without a trace, but their spirit lives on now.
This fanciful legend can creep up on the casual passerby quite dramatically. What's happening? What's happening? How does a bridge of this immensity tremble?
It's on air cushion.
Ah.
So you have two bridges here, with air cushions in between and then concrete.
Now, are you insured? I mean, the public are walking across this. They're going to have heart attacks. Ladies are going to faint. Listen, whatever happens, at least it gives you a lot of pleasure. I can see
Oh,
that.
yeah. It's wonderful. I think it's great.
Pretty short fuse yourself. What actually makes you blow up?
Incompetence.
Yes. Well, you're in the right place for it. There's a lot of incompetence around here. How do you handle it?
I think that provided people are trying, I don't have a problem. If the attitude's right, I know we're going to get there.
If it isn't, what happens?
If it isn't, there's going to be problems.
An explosion.
An explosion.
Everyone's trying this week when, for the first time, the lost city has been found. Soul's opening his new resort with an explosion of events. Miss World pageant, Jean-Michel Jarre light show, $1 million golf tournament, and a sparkle of glitterati. There's Jerry Hall with the retiring Miss World and Kim Alexis, Billy D. Williams, and Ivana Trump hiding her wine glass. So the paparazzi are in full flash.
Because when you have too many pictures of holding the glass, they make an alcoholic out of you. Promise you.
These posturings are chronicled by the columnist who spends his life amid such follies, Nigel Dempster.
There is no aristocracy in South Africa. I once went to Ethiopia and I was taken to the Wanji Hippo pool. And whenever I see South Africans at the trough, I think of the Wanji Hippo pool.
In your native Australia, I've heard it said that Sydney society is a contradiction in terms. What about Johannesburg society?
There's a very famous joke going around England at the moment. There was a man whose name I will not mention to spare me his blushes, who made a fortune in South Africa. And he plays golf, and so he moved to Sunningdale. And someone was asked at a London dinner party about this man. They said, ah, yes, too big for South Africa, too small for Sunningdale.
But, of course, every now and then, a couple of machine gunners walk into an English golf club down here, kill 4 people and throw a few grenades around and leave. So that has to be built into the cost of living.
And the extraordinary thing about Johannesburg is, of course, that you go there now. 5 years ago, you could walk around. You can't anymore. People are feeling very nervous. You lock your car windows. There's a lot of carjacking taking place. And to think of it only being 2 hours' drive from here gives us a slightly false illusion. But, of course, what Sol is providing in Sun City is total security. I was playing golf yesterday, and my shot at the 5th tee was disturbed by the baying of hounds that I've never heard before. Huge, I can imagine, Rottweilers with terrible teeth somewhere in the compound. I was told that was the security kennels.
No, I thought you were going to say it was a crocodile on the 13th hole.
No, he got my ball. He still got my ball. I wasn't going to go in there.
Now, the place itself, do you rate it as a comic strip version of Monte Carlo or as a gentler version of Caesar's Palace?
It's more Caesar's Palace than Monte Carlo. You've got to have, I would have thought, you've got to have something which is outlandish and slightly garish. But having said that, everything's done with enormous taste. I mean, it's over the top, but it's over the top taste. And you get the feeling that it's been here some time.
Who are you going to write about?
Well, obviously Sol Kerzner, because he's just put up £200 million worth of extravaganza behind us. He's a largely undiscovered person, and that's the delight of being able to write about people who aren't in the columns every single day.
This is the opening, so this is when they're pulling out all the stops. Are we seeing the international jet set here, or is this rent-a-crowd flown in from London?
No, I think it's rather low-key.
But there's some improbable people on my jury, I notice. I mean, the idea of Sidney Sheldon flying in here from America, a distinguished novelist though he may be.
A man who sold something like 130 million books.
Exactly, but to judge beauty queens, it's even more improbable than me.
I thought Sidney Sheldon was dead. Are you sure he's here?
Oh, dear. Yes, I'm sure. Yes, don't embarrass me. Yes, of course he's here. One of Dempster's victims, an American friend of Ivana Trump, Ken Lieberman. I mean, you're a high-powered socialite, really. You spend your life swanning around these places. How is the Lost City going to come? How is it going to rank, do you think?
I think it's going to be an experience.
Will you have fun here? South Africa is not a country for socialites like you, in fact.
I'm not sure they're really looking for social life when they go here.
You're gossip column fodder, and you enjoy it, I suspect. You quite like to turn up in Nigel Dempster.
I don't consider myself that. Most people probably don't even realize that I'm a research chemist.
Aren't people going to get frightened, though? I mean, here you have people going into bars with machine guns and that sort of thing.
But there's an interesting barrier between Johannesburg and this place. I mean, this is fairly remote. But as we know, terrorists will find you wherever they choose to find you.
Do you think Americans will come here?
I think there's no question about it. There's an apprehension. Americans are concerned, basically because they don't know. The news, as far as South Africa's concerned, in the States, is very much, I would think, slandered in a certain way. People don't even know what the political situation is in South Africa because they relate it to the American situation. They consider South Africa's problems the same as the civil rights movement in the States, and it's not. And to a great extent, South Africa's been a whipping boy. Americans have forgotten, I think, that it took 100 years for the black to get his vote in the United States.
Sol celebrates his carefree launch with guests aware of the gathering storm. Anyone could walk in here with a plastic bag and a bomb in it, leave it under a table, walk away. It's very hard to control.
That is the frightening aspect of South Africa. Unless we bring it to a head soon, we could have a situation that we have in England from the IRA.
Max Ulfane was once brave enough to be Sol's boss.
Well, Sol worked for the firm of auditors who did our accounts. And in fact, we were so impressed with Sol, as a young auditor, we offered him a job. And he said his life was the hotel business. As much as he'd like to work for us, he was going to do his own thing.
Was he as explosive then as he is now?
No, but he knew exactly what he wanted. I remember Sol in the early days coming through. Of course, being a friend of Sol, when we left the Copacabana, which was a restaurant within the complex, we could go out past the kitchens. And at 1:30 in the morning, I heard the most foulest language come from this kitchen. It was Sol chasing the chefs and everybody else in the kitchen. And my old father Norwin, as we walked past, said, "I'll tell you something, Max, that boy's going to be a success."
Despite the size and splendor of that boy's empire today, Sol's still a hands-on boss. Not much escapes his exasperation.
Close it up. There's another bus coming out. Too many people in one bus. Oh, bloody idiot.
His soft-spoken deputy managing director, Peter Venison, has worked with him on and off since the 70s.
You have this good cop, bad cop relationship with Saul. I mean, he's the volcano, and you're the quiet guy who comes in afterwards and picks up the pieces.
Is that a question?
Yes, it's a sort of ruminative question.
I see. Well, we are described that way somewhat. Sol is quite a volatile guy, as no doubt you have.
There's a rogue elephant in the lobby, and you're placating them.
Yeah, yeah. We have, in fact, a very good relationship in that way.
I suspect he's soft inside, and you're granite, you see. That's
I wouldn't say granite, but when it comes to a lot of the firing, the hiring, it's actually me that does it.
Exactly.
He does make a lot of noise. He's normally right about what he has to say when he's making the noise. And he sometimes can't contain himself from making the noise. And I do have to sometimes clear up afterwards.
But I mean, 1 minute he's everybody's uncle, and I've just seen a film about him which turns him into Saint Saul, really, on one side. The next minute he's kicking women reporters. So...
allegedly kicking women reporters.
Said to have.
Yeah.
She didn't write the story about it, so it couldn't have been much of a kick.
He said, I almost popped her.
What have been your biggest headaches?
The biggest headaches tend to be the nature of the South African guest. The South African guest is probably the most spoiled guest in the world. And that's because just as a nature of the way they live and the somewhat privileged lifestyle, our South African clientele tend to come from the breed who can feel free to drop their clothes on the floor and have someone else pick it up and have things done for them. When they travel overseas, they're as meek and mild as you will ever get.
Now, what about security? We're constantly hearing threats of demonstrations against Lost City, presumably by people who want to jump on your publicity bandwagon.
Yeah, yeah.
How do you cope with that?
Well, firstly, although we take it seriously, and we do have a large security force on our staff here.
Now, who are these security guards I see sitting outside the bedroom of an American novelist called Sidney Sheldon, who I can't think would be a terrorist target?
I don't think so. That was at the request of the guest. Request of the guest, yes.
What was he worried about?
I haven't the first idea. I don't know.
Why aren't you defending me?
Well, you didn't ask. We are defending you. I'm in the next door bedroom to you.
That's defense?
So outside the rooms of the more significant, or perhaps the more timid guests, unarmed security men. Their reaction to any terrorist attack, they told me, would be to race for the telephone.
Hola.
These are the doors that were in the original palace.
Now, are they ever closed?
They never close. They're in any event too heavy to close.
They look remarkably solid. Sol, what are they made of?
Well, it's certainly a bronze, isn't it?
It looks like it, I'll grant you that.
Absolutely. Well, in fact, they're fiberglass.
Where's the letterbox?
No letterbox.
One hell of a lot. It's more like St. Peter's.
There are so many things to tell you about this lobby. Firstly, whoever walks in, immediately the headscarf, that mural on the dome there, then I felt that to reflect that, we should have on the floor a similar sort of scene. And this mosaic, I must say, is just quite incredible. There are thousands of pieces of different marble of different colors. All the marble that you see outside of this area, which is very intricate, was all completed here in Southern Africa. And the same thing applies with the sculpting. So it's been hugely beneficial in terms of developing new skills right here in South Africa.
So they come in here, and I mean, this blows their mind, and then, of course, they want to come through here and look at this.
What we call the crystal court.
Yeah. This is as big as a jumbo hangar, isn't it?
It is incredible. And the secret here, quite frankly, was to build something that was so palatial, so beautiful in its scale, and yet for people to feel comfortable. Otherwise, one would have had this huge room And the danger is that you lose all the atmosphere.
You think people are overwhelmed?
I think, well, if you just see the way they walk in here and gaze, I mean, they're almost stunned.
I think
Sorry.
they are, yeah.
Sorry, Sol.
Okay, that's all right.
You come in a place like this, you feel like a Russian peasant arriving in St. Peter's. You know. The theme of the Lost Palace is water and the sound of water.
You can see the scale and size of the waterfalls so that they are real. You do believe, hey, this is a palace.
But what you're trying to do with this place is to attract a better type of gambler.
I don't want the resort to be seen as a gaming resort. I want it to be seen as a great African resort.
But the punters are the ones who are paying for it.
That's true.
But these are not the spenders, are they? They're
Well,
rubberneckers.
You'd be
you know.
surprised. There are two sorts of areas of gaming. The one area is what they call the high rollers. The other area is what they call the grind action. That's everybody coming in, having fun, dropping 100 Rand, 200 Rand in the machines. I do believe in time to come that we will get the high rollers from all over the world.
What I don't understand is why have you never gone into politics? You'd be Prime Minister. Huh? What went wrong?
I think I'm doing much better in business than I would do as a politician.
But he is careful to keep close to useful politicians, especially the founding president of Bophuthatswana since its independence in 1977, Dr. Lucas Mangope.
He's just a wonderful man. I was telling people this morning, he brought us here when this place was being cleared. It was nothing but just rock and mountain and whatnot. And he was telling us exactly at that stage where everything would be, every little. He had minute detail in his head.
Is there any antagonism within the state to a development like this, or is everyone enthusiastic?
Everyone is.
You can just see the people.
Oh no, oh no, this is just wonderful for everyone here. What we need to do, of course, is to resolve our political problems.
You were being given a hard time at your press conference by this girl reporter who said that the people of the state couldn't afford to come in and see the light show, I remember.
Well, you know, she put that question to Jean-Michel Jarre. She said to him, and just the way she put it, I knew that was trouble coming. And she said, how do you feel about playing the concert and doing the show where the local people can't afford the ticket price? I said, Jean-Michel, I want you to know what the ticket price is in American dollar terms, and it's $30. And he just shook his head because he said you can't go to any ordinary rock concert for that sort of ticket price. And I then said to her, I said, hey, what about the jobs that are going to be created because this man is helping us to launch?
Well, you know that you find abject poverty around here, but most of these people around here never had a job. They have a job now because of Sun City and because of this place.
Sun City employs some 5,000 Tswanas, controlled by its chief operations officer, a pale New Yorker in an Armani suit who'd been running boutique hotels in Manhattan. Jerry Inzerillo is suffering some culture shock.
Oh, big time. You know, when you walk out of the middle of Manhattan and you come to Bophuthatswana in the middle of the southern African bush, you know, life is much different.
It would seem that with any hotel, the bottom line is the staff, really. What you put on the walls and the furniture is really irrelevant from a guest's point of view. I come in here and I'm worried about the staff.
We have 6 people who conduct training each and every day. We do over 220 training sessions a week.
But you have to employ people from Bophuthatswana.
Yes,
you
most
can't
of them.
get city slickers from Johannesburg.
Right. 93% of our staff are from one tribe, the Swanas. And the Swanas would normally, in this part of the country, not be employed.
What about the ones that can't read or write? I mean, they can't handle a bar like this.
You know, we're not building nuclear power plants here. This is the hotel business.
It's an absolute new world for them, isn't it? Of course.
Unbelievable. As a matter of fact, it's interesting because on a Saturday night, many people will come just to ride the escalators because they've never seen an escalator in their life. You know, these standards of service, having fish forks, fish knives, triple sheeting on a bed, blow dryers in a room. These are elements that world-class travelers take for granted, but the staffers, many of them have never seen before.
And having to wear shoes, I mean, that's a start, isn't it?
That's a funny one, because especially in the housekeeping department, because when you're walking around, you'll see everybody's shoes outside their rooms.
Are you going to spend the rest of your life on Valium?
I'll tell you, you don't have to worry about adrenaline around here. It's rock and roll, big time.
The effect of all this big-time rock and roll upon the almost 2 million small-time people of Bophuthatswana does concern the president's son, Eddie.
Tribal chiefs around here were very much against the idea because they thought it was going to promote a lot of prostitution and also affect the culture of the people, in the sense that things like money and tips and all that. And also the other downside, I just forgot to mention, is that people see our people see other people winning these big amounts of money. And if a chap is running a little business and he takes money from the business and he just comes and gambles here and spends the rest of his money. So we've had some serious cases, especially where I work, whereby owner of a business went bankrupt because he took all the money and thought he was going to gamble and he lost. So that's a slight downside there.
You see, the Monegasques in Monte Carlo, they forbid locals to gamble.
I think we should do that here because it's a drug. And the positive aspects of it are enormous. It has served as a catalyst, you know, to show people that, you know, especially the Afrikaners in South Africa, that, you know, people can just live together.
Now, the thing about casinos is that they do attract a lot of people who aren't always very attractive, in a way, because it's easy money.
That's right.
And a lot of women hangers-on following that easy money.
Mm-hmm.
Has that happened here?
Yeah, it has happened here. It has happened.
And how do you handle that?
There's nothing you can do, Alan, because, you know, we believe that it's a democracy. We cannot force people not to come here, I mean, not to gamble.
So worshippers make their traditional sacrifices before the altars at the Temple of Sol. They're trying to appease autocratic croupiers and 500 hungry slots.
Now, this is the powerhouse of the whole of the place, really, isn't it? I mean, this is what gets it off the ground, the gaming.
Well,
this pays for Miss World, right?
Right. There's no question that the gaming side of the business is the most profitable side of the business. And, you know, I believe that if you do have gaming, if gaming is legalized and licensed, I think we've dealt with it the right way. We've taken the gaming earnings and we are promoting tourism.
Now, gambling has always attracted criminals. It's always attracted the mafia. Have you had mafia-type problems here?
No, we haven't, not at all.
How have you kept free?
I would think if you look at gaming today in the US, where major corporations have got into gaming, the mafia really believe that they ought to not try and put their hands on those operations. I think we're in exactly the same position.
So, Sol, you haven't got mafia problems here, luckily, but there is a history of corruption in Africa. So you've got different problems. I mean, here you pay tribute to the chief, don't you? It's classic and accepted.
No, not at all. In certain places, that is true. I can say, quite frankly, that in Bophuthatswana, that has never, ever been a problem. We won the concession on the basis of an audio-visual that we presented to the president and his cabinet.
But what about a suitcase full of 50-pound notes?
Right. After that video, the president turned around to the cabinet and he said, "Do you think we should sign with Sol?" And there was unanimous agreement. And he said, "Well, fine." He said, "I want you to come into my office with me." It was a very modest office that he had there. Walked in there, and he picked up an agreement. He said, "Some people were here to offer a deal." And he said, "Here is the agreement." And the agreement itself is better than in terms of percentages what government will get. is more favorable than what you've offered. He says, besides that, the agreement came and there was a big suitcase. And he says it wasn't full of clothes. And he says, I want you to know that we asked the people to leave. And he said, but I'll tell you this, Sol. He says, you better not let me down.
Save up to 40% on British Airways flights abroad when you collect your Sainsbury's receipts. Pack your bags at Sainsbury's and unpack them somewhere else in the world.
Don't worry, Colin, it'll be there.
DHL?
No problem, sir. Can do.
At DHL, we never forget that whenever we deliver your package, we are delivering something more important. Your promise.
Oh, looks like that policy's finally matured.
I know exactly what you need. At the Derbyshire, you'll find a straightforward approach to saving, because we've never lost sight of what a building society should be. So, for no-nonsense advice, call in. We'll make Derby sure you get it.
Solkersner pulls in punters with the help of celebrities prepared to expose themselves on his behalf.
Lovely. There it is.
Wow. And by repositioning Sin City as a family resort.
Flew them out of the tubes.
Have you done it?
Oh, no. Not sure that I want to. That's the biggest wave anywhere in the world. And from here, you look up on the hill, and those are the slides.
I'm told that you can get up to 30 miles an hour on the big slide there.
Absolutely.
Or somebody else can get up to 30 miles.
Well, someone else, you're right. That's the size of a 6-story building. And here comes the wave.
The wave?
There it comes. Have a look.
What we'd like to do now is to have a little bit of fun on the beach and a bit of a beach party. Will you put your hands together?
Breaking in the African sun. Body riding, having fun. Riding up waves is the place to be.
So he brought an unconnected guitar to the party and played to no one. Another musician brought 33 tons of equipment and played to 45,000.
Please welcome Jean-Michel Jarre.
Thank you. Good evening, Love City.
A sellout spectacle. And a lot of applause when his fireworks set the hillside ablaze.
The Lost City really interested me because I see my work more and more like musical paintings. And the Lost City for me is a mixing of Baroque and high-tech, of past and future, of primitive and sophistication.
Until a few years ago, Sun City was outlawed by the music industry. And people who appeared here suffered elsewhere. A lot of disapprobation, a lot of bad publicity. People who refused to come here were praised. Do you think that you could run into that sort of hostility?
I mean, you know, as outsiders, judging other outsiders, you can always be attacked as soon as you start to perform or do anything in a country in which you have some political problems. And I've always been a bit cautious about people definite about the fact that you shouldn't go to play in the Soviet Union during communism or in South Africa, even during the apartheid. I mean, this obviously you take a risk to be a victim of the government and all this. Having said that, I mean, in this country now, a lot of things have changed in this last 18 months.
I'm in terrible trouble because not only are we here making a documentary, but then I'm going to be a judge of Miss World. So I've got the feminists on me. I'm in bad trouble.
Yes, but you know, these days, whatever you do, you have always somebody against you. So the choice in the end is or you stay at home or you do what you have to do.
As you might expect, Sol's doing what he has to do from the very top. His Lost City accommodation ranges from the grand to the overwhelming.
I must say, you walk in, you see a grand piano, you know it's a serious suite, don't you?
We have 4 of them. Each presidential suite has a grand piano. And the layouts are similar, but the themes are somewhat different.
I presume this is a sort of priceless suite because it can't be on your daily room rate. It must go to a high roller, I suppose.
I think if we have to get to the point of selling these suites, then I think we're in trouble.
Now, are South Africans ready to spend for this kind of thing? Because South Africans, I'm told, they like a bit of flash, but they're not too keen on paying for it.
They've been spoiled.
Yes. The guests have trouble living up to the decor, and you have trouble providing service that's up to the decor.
Looking into this valley is just, for me, incredible. Here we go.
God. And here we go to Cape Town. From this executive jet, Sol galvanizes his entertainment empire, endlessly commuting from Bophuthatswana to his Buckinghamshire headquarters. Though today we're merely popping down the road 800 miles or so to a home he hasn't seen recently. Among other homes he hasn't seen, a mansion at Ibston near High Wycombe, a villa in the south of France at Aix, a house outside Johannesburg, a flat in Cadogan Square, and so on. He's adequately housed. Though this jet is home during 500,000 miles each year, and it's not a bad way to go. So people seem fascinated by your lifestyle, your private jet, your parties, your beautiful wives, your girlfriends, your taste for Johnny Walker Blue Label and Dom Perignon, your tough way of handling people. You do spark some extreme reactions, it seems.
Well, I guess I do, because everything one reads about myself would indicate that they refer to me as being controversial. I'm not sure why. They refer to me as being tough. I may, in meetings, adopt a tough stance when I feel I have to.
You seem to be the classic example of a self-made billionaire, really. You're the son of Ukrainian immigrants, working in your parents' cafe, boxing your way through university. Who were your heroes? Who were your role models?
I must say, I don't think I've really ever had a role model. I think, if anything, it may have been a couple of the movies that I saw as a young kid that you know, guys like...
Jimmy Cagney.
Well,
Spencer Tracy.
No, but Marlon Brando, for example, when I saw him on the waterfront, tough guy. I just loved and could relate to that.
You didn't have to rely on charm. You would punch your way through.
Well, the neighborhood that I grew up in, there was no time for charm. If you wanted to be okay, you'd punch your way through it. And it obviously changed as I grew up. And
you got suave.
And well, I don't think I've ever been suave.
Like, your parents were conservative Jews who kept a kosher home. How did they feel when you put all your money and their money into an upmarket hotel on a beach that no one had known about.
There were two different reactions. My late mother was terribly nervous. She was very, very worried, and people kept telling her, wow, Seoul's gone crazy and it's too luxurious. And I recall her once literally crying. She said, Seoul, you know, it's everything we've worked for all these years. And I said, don't worry, Ma, it's going to be great. And I must say,
it's just
the
like
reaction...
Brando, that actually.
But I must say, then, the reaction of my late father was completely different. He could see the vision, he had the confidence, and he pushed me along. Fine. And fortunately, it turned out to be very successful.
You've been divorced twice and widowed once.
That's right.
And your daughter became a drug addict. So it hasn't been a smooth path all the time.
And I've lost two sisters within a month of one another. Yes. And, of course, I lost my parents when I was, well, not that young, but young. And, well, that's what life's all about, Alan. I don't think anybody has a situation where everything is perfect. And I think very few of us can live through a life without having to deal with tragedies, having to deal with, you know, tough emotional times. And I guess the toughest time for me was when I lost my second wife, Shirley.
She committed suicide?
She committed suicide. She was an amazing girl. She was the joy of any party. She was always up there, but occasionally she'd go, and she did suffer from the occasional fit of depression. But the funny thing is that after Chantal, my youngest daughter, was born, she once said to me, she said, Sol, this problem, and she tried to commit suicide when she was a kid of 18. So there was that problem. It was very occasional, but it was there. And she then said to me, she said, you know, I'm so happy. We have Brandon, now Chantal, and he says, that problem you never need worry about.